That's African stuff. If you look at art tends to follow a certain type of a zeitgeist, a certain type of a mindset. People tend not to just wake up and paint one picture in America that looks identical to the picture that was painted in Africa thousands of years ago. Okay? And so whenever you see a piece of art, you can best believe that it was inspired by something that was seen prior to. In fact, when you look at some of the great European artists, okay, Van Gogh, and all of these types of guys, you will see a lot of their art was inspired by the so-called dark art of West Africa. There has been studies that have put the pieces of Van Gogh and others up next to pieces of traditional African cultural art in West Africa. That art that would be considered a negative, underworldly, dark, and demonic. But the great European artists copied what was considered by Europe some of the lowest and most primitive forms of artwork that went on to be considered some of the most successful by them.
Another very important African figure in Europe was a black man by the name of Angelo Soliman. He was a guy, he was a Moor, he was a celebrity in Europe, in Austria.
Lecrae
he was
Moore.
Also known as the father of pure Masonic thought because he was a Mason as well. And this guy, when he died, they literally stuffed his body. They skinned him and stuffed his body, and they would have him on display at certain places. So he was a very important figure in Europe.
Suleiman taught Mozart. Who's Suleiman? Suleiman's a Moor. He's an African. Who is Beethoven? Beethoven was Thovin Bey. He was a Moor.
His mother was a Moor. Yes. And when he went deaf, that melanin kicked in. The inner eye kicked in.
Third eye, y'all.
Better when he was deaf than he heard it otherwise. There's also another myth that he cut the webbing of his hand down to the bone so that he can get a better stretch. So there's some of the 32nd chords that he has. He plays, and most people can't play. They need like two people playing. That's why some people, in certain instances, you see two people playing Beethoven, two pianos playing Beethoven. That's because of what he did when he stretched his finger.
Beethoven was called a Moor when he was growing up. Beethoven, there's a book about him called Beethoven's Hair because people were so infatuated with the texture of his hair. So that African bloodline runs real deep throughout Europe. And again, he was called a Moor, and the Moors were very important throughout Europe. And it's funny, the importance of the Moor was so deep in Europe, but we rarely hear about them in history books today.